Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this super cute petal-popping flower granny square. I'll be using these 5 different colors of yarn. This is Favorite from Ice Yarns. They say it's a 4-weight, but it's quite thin. I'll be using a 5mm crochet hook, and you'll also need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for sewing in your ends later. If you're using a 4-weight yarn that is a regular size, a bit thicker than this, you're welcome to use a 6mm hook or whatever hook is suggested on the yarn label. And if you'd like to follow along with a project planner or a written pattern, both are available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I'm speaking in this video. Starting with your first color, we're going to make a slip knot. We don't need to leave a very long tail, maybe just 1 or 2 inches. We're going to work over it. So make your slip knot and pop it onto your hook and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to work into our very first chain. We're going to go right into that very first loop, right on top of our slip knot. Now into that very first chain, right here, put your hook in. It doesn't matter how many loops you have on the top of your hook. And we want to arrange ourselves. So we want to get our tail following our work, and we want to have a little U shape going on underneath our hook. We want to hold that open with our finger and thumb. That's going to be the center where we're going to start our flower. And now slip stitch to join. So bring your yarn through both loops and chain 1. I'm still holding that open with my finger and thumb. Into the center of that stitch, right where your finger is, we are going to make 5 single crochets, taking care to go over that tail. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to slip stitch to the top of our first single crochet. It is right over here, right on that side. So we're kind of jumping a little bit far away. So we want to go into that very first stitch we made, right over on that side, and slip stitch to join. 1 slip stitch, chain 1 to secure your yarn, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So that finishes round 1. To start round 2, so we have our chain 1 here at the top. We don't want to go into that stitch right after. We're going to go into the second stitch after our join, right over here. So pop your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. Put a loop of the new yarn color onto your hook, leaving a longer tail than you would need to sew in with a needle. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Now your tail is long enough to sew in with a needle. Just hold that along the back of your work and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. So that counts as your first double crochet and chain 1. If you join your yarn in a different way, chain 4. Wrap your yarn and make 1 double crochet into that same stitch. 1 double crochet and chain 1. Wrap your yarn into the next stitch right here. We're going to make 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet all into the same stitch, and chain 1. Into the next stitch right here, we're going to do the same thing. So wrap your yarn into the next stitch, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet, chain 1. Into the next stitch right here, wrap your yarn, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet, chain 1. So every stitch gets a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. Now we're getting close to our join. So into the stitch before the join, right here, we're going to do the same thing. So 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet, chain 1. There's your double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet, chain 1 into the same stitch. And now into the stitch after that join, we're going to go in right there, and we're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to go over our tail. So wrap your yarn, and into that next stitch, the last stitch around, 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 double crochet, chain 1, and now we're going to slip stitch to join. So we're going to slip stitch to the 3rd chain, leaving that chain in between our double crochets. Just everything matches. We're going to go right here, and we're going to make sure we get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. So go into that 3rd chain and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 2. To start round 3, just work into any of these spaces. So it doesn't matter where you start, just not exactly where you did your join. So just pop your hook into any space, loop of your new yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just hold it along the back of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. If you join your yarn in a different way, chain 3. Now we're going to work over our tail, so you can just hold it along with your work. And into that very same space, we're going to do 3 double crochets. So wrap your yarn and 3 double crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. Pull a loop of yarn up and take out your hook. Now we're going to go into the top of our chain 2. We're going to go right here. Make sure you get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. So pop your hook in, loop of yarn back on your hook, shrink it down, and bring it through that stitch, just like that. And chain 2. 1 and 2. So that's our first little popcorn. You can drop your tail now. We'll have to sew it in later. Now into the very next space, right here, we're going to do a popcorn. So a popcorn is 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull your hook up to make a larger loop. Take your hook out. We're going to put our hook straight into the top of that first double crochet that we made. Right there. 2 strands of that V on the top of your hook. Just like that. Put that loop back on your hook, shrink it down, and bring it through that stitch. Chain 2. 1 and 2. And we're going to do that in every space all the way around. So we're going to be making 12 of these popcorns. So wrap your yarn into the very next space, 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull your hook up to make a bigger loop, take your hook out, pop it into that very first double crochet that you made, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, both of those strands of the V. Loop back on your hook, shrink it down, and bring it through that stitch. Chain 2. When you get to your tail, just hold it along your work, along the top, and we're going to work over it for that popcorn. So just do your popcorn over your tail, just for that one popcorn. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3, and 4, and we'll turn that into a popcorn. So loop up, hook out, loop on, bring it through, and chain 2. So now you can pause the video and keep working along, making a popcorn into each space all the way along. You'll end up having 12, and I'll meet you when you get back to the join. So after your last popcorn into your last space, chain 2, 1 and 2, and now we're going to slip stitch to join, but we're going to slip stitch quite far away. So if you separate those first 2 popcorns you made, you'll see this first chain where we tied our popcorn together. That is where we're going to slip stitch. So way over into that first chain 1 after our popcorn. So put your hook way over there, slip stitch 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, and slip stitch to join. Just like that. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up, your yarn through, snug that down to secure, and that finishes round 3. To start round 4, our leaves, we are going to start 3 spaces. Here's our join. We're going to start 3 spaces before. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to start 3 spaces before our join. So loop of your leaf color on your hook, bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 2, 1 and 2. This counts as our first double crochet, but if you joined your yarn in a different way, chain 3. Now make 1 double crochet into that same space, taking care to go over your tail. There's 1 double crochet, and chain 2, 1 and 2. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into our next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2. Now our next space has our join, so we're just going to hold that tail along the top of our work so we can work over it. And we're going to make a corner, which is 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2 more double crochets into that very same stitch. 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2. Into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and into the next space we're going to do a corner. Corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets all into the same space. So there's 1 double crochet, here is 2, chain 2, 1 and 2 more double crochets into that same space. 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1, 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and into the next space, a corner. Corners, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into the same space. So there's my 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same space. 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, and now we're back to where we started, so we're just going to finish that corner. So into the last space where we began, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and now we're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain to join, right there. And we're going to get 2 strands of that chain on the top of our hook. So pop your hook in, slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 4. To start round 5, just go into that corner before our join, right over here. So we're going to go into the corner before. So just pop your hook into that corner space, loop of your new yarn on your hook, bring it through, and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along your work, and chain 2, 1 and 2. Now this counts as our first double crochet, but if you joined your yarn in a different way, chain 3. Wrap your yarn and 2 double crochets into that same space. 1 and 2. Now into the next space, right after our corner, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now into our corner, we want to work over our tail, so just hold it along your work, just like that. And we're going to go into our corner and make a corner. So now we are doing 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Push those stitches back a little bit so you have more space in that corner area, and 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So that is your corner and our first side. Now you can pause the video and put 3 double crochets into each of these spaces going along the side, and I'll meet you at the corner. So there are my 3 sets of double crochets into each space along the side. And now our corners are 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all into the same corner space. So there is 2, 3, chain 2. Now you can kind of grab your leaf and pull those stitches back just to give yourself some more space So your double crochets are all sitting side by side, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. There is 2 and 3. So now you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along each side, and corners 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, we want to slide these stitches ahead. So grab your leaf and push your stitches down a bit. We want more space so we can have all of our stitches lining up nice and pretty side by side. And into this last corner space, make your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2. And into the top of that chain, right here, we're going to do our slip stitch to join. So pop your hook in and slip stitch to join. Chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails and you're finished. Now if you want to keep going and make your granny square larger with the same color yarn, at your corner, chain 1. And now instead of doing a slip stitch, we're going to do a single crochet to join. So just pop your hook in like we would and bring your yarn back, make 1 single crochet. Now hold that corner open with your finger and thumb, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn your work. See, I'm keeping that hole open. Now I'm going to do my 2 double crochets into this corner space. 1 and 2. Just like that. And now keep going. You do 3 double crochets into each space all the way along. Corners are the same as they were before. Joining this way keeps that seam, that chain 3, always in the corner, and turning your work keeps your granny square from slowly twisting to the side. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'd love to see how yours turned out. You can find me on social media. All of those links are in the description box down below. And if you haven't joined or subscribed to this channel, go ahead and click those buttons under this video right now. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay hooked.